What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Champion Living Podcast, where we believe that consistency, perseverance, and not taking life too seriously are the keys to success. I'm Doug, the founder and owner and head coach of Champion Living Fitness. Each week, I'll be joined by my coaching staff with the vision of providing trustworthy information about fitness, nutrition, and mindset, and how this all applies to being a professional rodeo athlete, as well as people from all walks of life. Are you ready to become a champion? Let's go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Paul is back.
You got there.
Back. Have you guys seen these frog fuels?
Sauce? Yes, I have seen those.
Have you tried them?
No, I have not.
Okay.
What is it?
Frog fuel. So these are, they were designed by Navy SEALs. Essentially, it's 15 grams of protein in a shot, and it's got collagen. Is there? Let me just read this all off to you real quick. Collagen, protein, taurine, tryptophan, histidine, I don't know what that is, glutamine, and cysteine. So all your they're amino acids. So 22 amino acids plus 15 grams of pure collagen protein in a goop that tastes like if cough syrup was good.
If cough syrup. Is there any, like, how many calories are in there?
Well, 15 grams of protein times 4.
60
hear me?
calories.
That's it.
Yeah, you're kind of
So there's no carbs or anything in there.
No, it's just protein and
Interesting.
amino acids. And then they have another version that is like a pre-workout version, and it's got 10 grams of the collagen protein, and then they put in like beta, I don't know if it's beta alanine. They put in a couple of things, 80 milligrams caffeine and something else to help you sustain longer fuel source, essentially. So it's got to be some kind of fat they put in there. I got to go look at the box.
Well,
So
I mean, you would think it'd be
it's kind of
carbohydrate.
similar to like when runners, like marathon runners, and
Yes,
stuff, they
exactly.
take those shots.
Exactly. Except for there's no carbs. So I know most of them are eating carb gels, like when
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the glucose for quick energy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you would think that they would have some carbohydrates in there. There's a freaking wasp in my office.
Don't let it get you. But yeah, so I got these for my hunting trip. It was like last year.
So you're using them all before you go hunting?
I'm testing them to make sure that
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Testing them, he says.
That is a good
Testing
idea, actually.
hey, bro, I don't know about you, but I ain't trying to be testing things while I'm 10 miles out in the woods
that
and
is
find out that it does not agree with my belly, because that's
that would
not
be
fun.
that would be horrible.
I test everything before I get out there. But I've been having a lot of like just tendon pain, joint pain. I was like, collagen cannot hurt. I've been taking one of these last, 10 days. Feel great.
That's
Feels
awesome.
good. Don't know if it's that or placebo effect or not doing high intensity workouts or all of the above.
Yeah, probably.
Probably a mix of for sure.
But yeah, I've been digging them. They taste good, and it's just another one of those things that you can have in the toolbox that's a supplement, so easy when you're on the road, when you're anywhere. And like last year, I lost a ton of weight, and majority of that muscle, because I don't have a lot of body fat to lose. My goal is to kind of try and maintain as much protein intake as I can while I'm out there. And these freeze-dried meals I got it's 50 to 60 grams a meal. And I'm going to I eat 3 of those a day. And then I got these, they're called green belly bars, dude. And they're super healthy, but it's just nuts and fruit, dried fruit. They're 1,000 calories a bar.
Oh, that's
They
awesome.
are nuts. And yeah,
Literally.
yeah. Oh, they should use that. I've just got it planned out. So I'm somewhere around 3,500, 4,000 calories a day while I'm out there. And on some days, probably will burn more than that. Other days, we won't burn as much.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an ebb and flow, but
I
trying to
don't
stay
know.
ahead.
I don't know how you could eat more than that on the, you know what I'm saying? It would be
It's
so
tough, dude.
hard to like packing in and packing out like that to eat 5,000 calories a day. You know,
Well,
like
it's 3 of these freeze-dried meals a day plus the bar and the gels. And so it's 21 meals for this trip
yeah.
I have to take out there. And
Yep.
they're like,
Oh yeah.
they're freeze-dried, but they're not small. And so what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I have a meat shelf in my bag that I can pack meat in, right? When I have meat, I'm going to pack all my meals in there.
Yep.
And so I can pack all my other stuff in my actual bag, and it won't affect like my carrying space.
Yeah.
And then that space will be going down as we hunt and I'm eating food, right? So that's what I think I'm going to do, but it's going to be heavy going in, real heavy. And then on top of that with water and stuff, but been to just kind of thinking about all the nutrition aspects of this, and it's a big change from what I'm used to talking about, because I usually talk about nutrition with our athletes, and we're talking about feeding a totally different energy system. And so last night I kind of just geeked out, got out some paper and pen and wrote it all out. Like what on average, I even had my Whoop on me last year. So I went back to my average burns. Dude, I burned 6,700 calories on multiple days.
Wow.
Like,
That's
what?
nuts.
And then you're not going to replace that then. You're not going to replace that food. So it's just a cool thing to see, and for me to mess around with and kind of treat it like a quote unquote sport, if you will, but just looking at my stats and stuff, from last year and what the output was and kind of territory we were in. So it's kind of cool to break it all down, and I've been enjoying it. But yeah, these frog fuels have been a cool little addition.
I think there's a lot of companies that do that. Maybe not a lot, but I've seen some other companies that pretty much do what we do, but they do it for hunters.
For hunting,
And so they get to geek out on that stuff all the time. The nutritional requirements, as well as like training for being out in the woods and all that kind of stuff. I mean, anyway, it seems obviously, if listeners have listened for a while, realize that I'm not a big hunter.
He's an advanced hunter. Yeah, he's done it.
I'm very beginner, but it's something that would be just like rodeo, right? It's something that you do. It's a sport of passion.
Absolutely.
And so, man, it would be so fun to be in that industry as a strength coach or personal trainer working with hunters I would imagine would be a lot of fun too.
We've got a couple guys that I know Matt trains that are just guys that are friends with rodeo guys, and they hunt a lot, and that's their whole goal for working out. Obviously is to be healthy, but they drive like big machinery all day for their work. They're doing physical manual labor sometimes, and they're like, I just want to get up the mountain and feel good. And I know last year he was called me after the season, and he's, dude, hearing these guys so fired up about them dusting their buddies up the mountain, like everyone showing up and they can't even hold a candle to what they're able to do. And he's like, we didn't even go that hard. I just was really consistent with what I did. And that's the difference in how you approach fitness for each of these different things. We talk about this fitness for, well, more like strength and conditioning for rodeo athletes a lot. And as a previous rodeo athlete, and moving on to other passions in life, like I've had to adjust how I do things and how I train and how we look at things, and it's fun. It's a fun change up, and I've been enjoying the heck out of it. But it's anyone listening that doesn't rodeo and likes the outdoors, likes to hike, fish, hunt, wants to get out and be fit for that, we do that too. We try
do it all.
Help do it all, dude. Speaking of this, okay, actually change the subject. Not speaking of anything.
So it's not speaking of this at all.
It got me thinking about social media. Instagram has lost their mind. I don't know what's going on. I can't get a single person to look at my stuff, but I've been running a little test. And so I started an archery page, mostly because I have all these ideas that I like to share my passions, just like we all do. And I've got too many dang passions, and it's clogging up our Champion Living feed. So I was like, I've got to make a separate page for all this hunting and stuff. So I made a Instagram page for archery. If you're a beginner, if you want to get into it, it'd be like somewhere you could go and just all the things. Again, I wish I would have been able to click and read and be like, oh, that would make my life easier, picking a bow or shooting my first couple arrows or whatever. But my reach on that page with 140 followers is more than what I'm getting with 29.9 thousand followers on our Champion Living page. What is going on with that? It is insane. Like, what? So I'm about to start a whole new page everywhere. All new pages. Let's go. Out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah. It is pretty frustrating. One of the things that we actually just got done talking about this morning was trying to figure out what to post, and so I always have those ideas that are like, oh, they need to know about this, and they need to know about that, and they need to know about this. And instead of just asking my audience, what would you like to know about? What are your big frustrations, or what are the things that, holding you back or whatever? And it was crazy that I did that last week, and I had probably 50 Instagram conversations over the last 4 or 5 days. None of the top 3 things that they said they needed were things that I would say that they needed. Crazy. Yep. But it's so helpful because now I feel like I can actually serve them better. I can actually help them because I know what they're struggling with.
You ask and you shall receive.
Exactly right.
That's awesome, dude. No, it's a crazy world out there. Social media land, I'll tell you what.
On the interwebs. Crazy interwebs.
You had some good family time yesterday, Paul. You got out to the
National Forest. Yeah.
Had your shirt off sitting in a cave, I saw.
Yep.
Good.
Best place to have your shirt
Touching
off.
the roots. It is.
Calling the bears. Yeah, you
Yeah.
call a bear.
Come here, bear.
Here, bear.
Don't you use honey?
No.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Yesterday was our anniversary, and so we started the day off with a little argument because I thought it was our 8th
Good.
anniversary. It turns out it's our 7th. So it's a perfect way to start it.
Oh, love it.
Okay.
Love it. That's real.
Yeah, it is real. So
That's real.
7th or 8th, whatever it is. But yeah. So we don't have any family around here, and Heather doesn't trust human beings at all to watch her
good.
kids.
Understand.
Yeah, she's very mother bear there. And so
Bring him along.
yeah, we brought him along. So we celebrated our family birthday. Yeah, it was fun.
You guys have packed a lot of life into 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, we have. That's like
yeah.
Cannon was flipping through a photo book yesterday, right before we left. And it was like from when he was about 1.5, like what Callie's age is now. And so he's like flipping through and he's like, wow, I've been a lot of places. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, you have. Because when we had one kid, we didn't slow down. Like we just kept going same speed as we were before we had kids. And you just went everywhere with us. And now the tactic has to change a little bit. You know, like a trip like yesterday, if it was just Heather and I, we would just pack a cooler and leave. When you have 3 kids, though, it's packing a cooler and a shade tent and a blanket and their chairs and their snacks and their toys and all this other stuff. So it's like a whole packing process.
It's like taking Logan to OPA, man.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's the same thing. You got to make sure he's
honestly, that's me. I can't leave without snacks. Don't let me get hangry.
It is a lot to go anywhere with the family. It is, man, it's nuts.
Bro, you have like almost a full football team, Logan.
Yeah, between the two of us, we could. Well, I mean, if you include Tyler, right? Like, I mean, we there's a whole passel of kids, but yeah, I mean, we went to a little rodeo, judged a rodeo that was only maybe 40 minutes from the house this weekend, and so it's the same thing. The minivan is loaded down with the cooler and with the rug and the rope and dummy and the ropes and a bag of toys and a bag of pajamas so we could change them into pajamas before we went home because they fall asleep in the car. Anyway, so I feel your pain. It is much different than life is much different now. Leaving the house anyway looks crazy different than when you're
a C-class RV looks real appealing.
Yeah, don't do it, big dog.
Loaded down. Yeah, I know that you did that, but man,
no, don't.
It does look real appealing. And I was like, you know what? We went to one junior rodeo and I sat outside in 110 degrees and freaking baked in the sun with nothing but a lawn chair and a cooler. And I was like, this is stupid. Now I know why all these people have RVs. So then we went and did it. And you know what? I loved it. And if you use it, they're great. But the problem is that we used it 3 times a year and they're made to use. So every time I got behind the wheel, I felt like something else was going wrong.
No, bro, that's just how they are. No, that's even when you use them, they break down.
Well, I mean, they do. I mean, just like vehicles,
if it flies, if it floats, or if it carries massive amounts of people down the road, rent it. Do not buy them because they are money pits. All of them.
Yeah,
I've seen it, bro. That's just how they are. Richie has a really, really nice motorhome, and they're loving it. Getting same thing, taking the family with them on the road. Dude, there's just little things that are constantly popping up just because that's how they are. Yeah, this is. If you buy one of those things, you got to know you're going to be working on that thing.
Yeah,
it's gonna have its issue, as you know.
And I think that's the thing is, if you're using it enough, like it would be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
To do that. But if you're not, then
it's definitely
spending more. You're spending more, like in Logan's case, spending more.
You're on the road
things than
over 100 days a year. Like
using it. Yeah.
Yes. Do it.
Yeah,
because in the long run, that's going to save you on hotels
or if you got money, go do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. With small kids, if you're rodeoing on the weekends or junior rodeos or barrel races or whatever, and you need man, it's so nice to have a place for naps and have a place for all.
Well, yeah,
air conditioning
gives you a chance to keep the routine.
It makes a lot of sense. We thought that we were going to be really quickly in that stage of life, and it looks like we're headed to that direction. We just weren't there yet, and everything else that I do, I just dove into the shallow end and broke my nose. So we decided to get rid of that. we decided to get rid of the RV until we're
no.
ready for something, aka never.
We got to make a shirt that's just a dude face first in the shallow end of a pool.
Yeah.
Orbiting it.
Oh, that's
Pulled a
good
real
stuff.
Corvette right there.
Yeah, a real Corvette.
Yeah,
Oh, good stuff. But yeah, man, that's the seasons of life. I'm
Mm.
sitting here taking notes from you guys on what not to do.
he's got a whole
Got
notebook.
my pen and notebook over
Yeah.
here right now.
Way better to learn from somebody else's mistakes than your own.
Oh, I am all about it, boys. All about it. You guys keep on trying, and I'll keep on learning.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna be calling you in tears, I'm sure, multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter how much learning you do when it comes to kids, you will make your own mistakes.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready for them.
That is certain.
That's happening real quick. We're already halfway through, man.
Yep.
Speaking of halfway through, we are in the last quarter of the year, starting in 9 days. The
Yep.
next quarter starts, I believe. And so that is going to bring us into the final 8 weeks of the professional rodeo season. Holy crap. 8 weeks. We're going to blink and that's going to see Paul blinked. It's gone. We're already there.
Gone.
Mhm.
Yep. It's going to be insane. And the pressure's up, turning up the heat a little bit on that dancing chicken, you know? And,
Dancing chicken. It is, but it's so fun to watch. And there's always quite a few at the front end of the events. You know, Josh, I mean, that's a story for another time.
Bro.
Somebody that just is going to rodeo for half a year and have a commanding lead. But there are those guys, you know, the top 2 or 3 in every event that are locked in and ready. But there's inevitably some shuffling that takes place in that bottom 5, you know, maybe even a little higher than that, especially with some of the events that they have towards the end of the year that add a lot of money. And that shuffling, you never know. There is no, like you said, it's going to take more money this year than it's ever taken. So you never really, well, last year took 120,000 to make it. Oh, I got 125. I'm good. Oh, probably not.
You just can't. I don't know. You can compare the last year, but you have to be looking at the growth of the next year.
Mhm.
You'll plan the trajectory of where you're going to need to be.
Yep.
And you know, there's going to be guys who have these random hot years that you're just not. You can't catch them. But
Yep.
everyone else, it's coming down to what's happening, right? Like the all around this year. There's no Stetson. There's no Stetson in the bull riding. There's no Stetson in the bronc riding. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for guys to put their stamp on whatever they want, essentially, you know, something that is going to just it's a cool change. I'm excited as heck to see it, and I'm excited to talk about what we're going to get into today, and that's mental preparation and how do you handle high pressure situations in competition or life and come out successful. And I've been talking about this topic with a lot of athletes. I had a conversation with one of our clients' dads last night, and the kid can ride a spur board, no one's business. It's 100% perfect. Get him into live action situations, out the door, right? Can't focus, couldn't tell you if he marked him out, lift on his rein, anything. You know, it just goes out the window for him. And he's like, what do we need to do? What do we need to work out? What do we need to train? I'm like, we don't need to go to the gym for this. This is a mental block, 100%.
Between the years.
Yeah, and this is the pressure is making us crack, and we're not using it to fuel us. And that was me 100% the majority of my career. I could not calm down, could not just focus on the basics. And that's because my mental game was weak. I didn't work on my mental game. I worked out all the time. Couldn't remember one time I sat down to visualize. 7 years after a broken back, when I came back, it's the first thing I did. Saw myself riding bucking horses, right? So today we're going to jump into all the techniques you all can use to kind of overcome these high pressure situations and use them to your advantage and see yourself winning. And the biggest thing here is you've got to believe it in everything that we talk about today. Paul, you want to kind of just talk about visualization?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Get into it.
Yeah, basically the purpose of like mental preparation is getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. Like you have to you know that those situations are going to arise, and so we need to get comfortable with that. That was a very without getting
How are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable?
Yeah, it's super comfortable now. Sorry. Mental squirrel over there. But visualization is a technique that I've used and we've talked about many times, but like you are able to present that situation in your mind so that it becomes familiar with you. Just like with anything, like we want repetitions is what is where we learn things. And so when I use visualization, I would recreate those scenarios in my mind that I knew were going to come up as vividly and as clearly as possible. And so I'm trying to picture like the entire process. A lot of times people will try to see themselves like but I would start even further back from that. I would see myself getting on the truck. I would see myself, paying my entry fees. I would see myself warming my bull rope up. I would see myself going through my process. And then because all of that, the more I repeat it, the less I have to think about it when game day actually comes, because then it becomes a habit. And so I'm visualizing this entire scenario, and then I'm trying to ultimately get to that final outcome. I want to see the successful outcome, and then put the cherry on top. This one's really important. See the celebration. If I could visualize the celebration, like then that took that fear factor away when I'm actually physically standing on the back of the buck and shoots, wondering how this is going to go. I've already seen myself celebrating this ride in my mind 500 times. And so I know that if I just trust my body and trust my instincts to take over, that I'm going to be able to replicate what happened in my mind in real life. And this comes down to, you got to use all of your senses. Like you want to make it so real. You want to make it so real that your heart rate starts to elevate while you're doing this. Like you want it to feel as real as possible. And so think about the smells, think about the sights, think about the sounds, think about feeling the gravel under your feet as you're crossing the parking lot. Think about the feel of the buck and shoots and the humidity in the air, and there's the condensation on the buck and shoots, and then you crawl over and then you feel the animal twitch underneath you. Feel all of that stuff as real as you possibly can. And man, I got chills just talking about it. But you and do it regularly, because at first it's really hard. You buck yourself off a lot of times, but you got to stick with it and just keep hammering on it. And it is probably the most powerful technique for strengthening your mind that I've ever run across.
Hui has the best gear because it's tough, it's durable, it withstands the test of what we put it through, and that is why I am a big supporter of Hui brands. Guys, from hats, apparel, whatever you need, they've got you covered. They are the perfect blend of rodeo style and athletic performance. You can check them out at huibrands.com. Use our discount code ChampionLiving, all one word, is going to save you a little bit at checkout. Y'all, if you're having trouble sleeping or you've got really achy muscles, Power Pro CBD has teamed up with us to bring you their tinctures and their warming lotions. Guys, these have been a crucial part of my nightly routine. Y'all can check them out at PowerPro, PWRpro.com. Use our discount code ChampionLiving, all one word, to save you a good chunk at discount. Absolutely, man. And the practice is the biggest thing. You've got to do this over and over. And like he said, you will suck at it at first. And especially for you guys just starting, or girls just starting in your events, and you haven't, maybe especially in the roughs, like you haven't completed a ride, you haven't made it past 2 jumps. Like, how are you supposed to visualize a perfect ride? And it's tough. But what I'm going to say is, how about we start with the beginning?
Yep.
Executing perfect procedure in the buck and shoot, leaving there perfectly. That first jump is perfect. You've been on that first jump. It might not have been perfect, but you know how it could have been. So you need to picture yourself doing it perfectly, and then you can build from there, right? And as you practice the skill, you're going to get further on those rides as you're doing this, and it's going to become easier to see the vision. And so they all start to progress together if you're working on them at the same time. And I really think Richie, that was his biggest success, that he didn't know what he was really doing when he was younger, but was doing something really incredible. And I put him on his first horse when he was 16. Like I said, rode bulls, been on 1,000 bulls, literally so many bulls, and could not get him rode. Got on this horse and could correlate the times that he had been on bulls, right? Getting that far in 8 seconds, and then what he knew about horses. And within the first 10 horses, this kid's like visualizing before he falls asleep. And he'd wake up and tell me, "Do you do this?" And I wasn't. I should have taken notes from when he was a kid, and I didn't, dumbass. But he'd be like, yeah, I bucked myself off 5 times. It took me forever to fall asleep because I had to do it right. Just looking back at everything that's happened in his entire career so far is, whoa, he believed and saw himself doing this long before he was ever like really able to do it. But it's so crucial to do this. And if you can start at a young age, it's huge because go ahead. Yep.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
All I was going to say was that you can do all the things you want, but if you don't believe it, you're never going to go anywhere.
And that's huge. I kind of have like a real world example from myself. When I took a 2-year break, kind of like Doug, I laid off for a while and then decided I wasn't quite done and wanted to come back. And so I practiced a lot of active visualization, in which I would put myself in those scenarios when I was riding the spur board, and where am I at and what am I doing and what delivery is this horse and those kind of things. And so one of the things that I always did was, when I climbed over my spur board, I think I've shared this story on the podcast before, but I would always put my foot parallel with the spur board, kind of in close as I stepped over and down, kind of like I was getting in the bucking chute. You know, you got your foot in the slats and it's kind of uncomfortable and awkward, but I would always do that every time I got on the spur board. And the first rodeo that I went back to, I was a nervous wreck. It had been 2 years since I'd really been on anything, one practice horse, and then entered a rodeo. And I stepped over my horse and stepped into that slat on the bucking chute. And it literally was this wave of anxiety that just washed away. That was like, oh, I've been here before. And it was just because I had practiced that and I'd seen it in my mind over and over and over again.
That's something that I started probably a little too late, was like even practicing tying your hand in. I mean, going through all those motions. So like Doug said, if you're just starting out and you haven't made a qualified ride, well, first I would, beg you to go to a school where you can get on stock that you can at least get on a qualified ride. Yeah. If you're in the bulls, go somewhere where you can go get it on steers and you can just hear the whistle. If you're in the horses, even if there's not quality horses around you that you can make the whistle on, like spur out horses, but do everything the same. Do everything like you're getting on live action. But yeah, go into your spur board or go into your stationary barrel and like actually going through your shoot procedure in a controlled environment, practice tying my hand in, practice the wrap that I wanted to take, practice sliding up on my rope. Like all of those things are huge for your mental game, because even though the unknowns are going to happen once you nod, at least everything that happens before that is already taken care of and accounted for.
Exactly, man. It's huge. It is, and it's free to work on. It takes nothing, no equipment. You don't need nothing. You just need your brain in maybe a quiet place. And if you haven't listened to Casey Fields' episode with us, you need to go back and listen to that, because that dude dives into all of the mental prep that he used to do, and specifically for you bareback riders, how he incorporated it with the spur board, everything. That was, I went back and listened to it the other day. It's just got some awesome nuggets in there, man. But I love that. You've got to visualize, you've got to believe it, and you have to practice it, y'all. It needs to be the same as going to the gym. It's a workout. Let's talk about breathing, because I was really good at holding my breath. I'll tell you that.
It starts, you can practice it. It even ties into visualization, I think, because when I would do my visualization techniques, I'd also work on that, on my breathing, and controlling my breathing.
Did you do that? Like, how long did it take you to learn to do that, though?
Oh, it's hard. It's not what you want to do. I mean, it's months of consistent.
Unnatural, right?
Yeah, it's very unnatural when you get in those high pressure situations. And even if you're at the practice pen, if you're getting on a bull or a bucking horse, or like it's a high pressure situation at any time. And so calm, like using that deep breathing, naturally what we want to do is we just want to like just the short breaths, quick in, quick out, right? And what happens is that our heart rate just gets to rolling, and we'll get going so fast that we'll wake up at 6 seconds or at the end of the ride and we're like, what just happened? And so focusing on taking the deep breaths, it's really going to calm that central nervous system down, which is going to allow you to be much more present while you're competing than if you're firing, on all cylinders or more than, and your heart is racing. So those it's great to practice during visualization, but this is like utilizing it in the minutes leading up to competition. If you just focus on your breathing an hour before the rodeo and then you don't think about it again when you're getting ready to ride, like it's not going to do a whole lot for you. It's really about slowing your heart rate before you compete. So there's a couple different techniques that you can use. One of the ones that I employed was box breathing, which is like a 5-second deep breath in, and then a 5-second hold, a 5-second exhale, and a 5-second hold without air. And I would just go through that over and over again, in through the nose, and I would exhale out through the mouth, and I would just go. And typically for me, what this looked like, maybe you guys had different routines, but for me, I would just hang out with the boys and wouldn't really think much about the breathing until after I put my rigging on. When the horses were loaded and I went and set my rigging on, from that point in time, while I was setting my rigging, then I really started focusing on my breathing. And it wasn't that I didn't have conversations with other guys or talk, but at any point in time in which I was, after that point, I just focused really on I'd always come back to that breathing, that box breathing, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, over and over and over again. And it was amazing. I used a whoop. And before I started this, my heart rate would be somewhere between 175 to 185 beats a minute while I was competing, which is tapped out. That was about as fast as she'd go. Once I started this, I actually brought my heart rate down to somewhere between 130 and 140 beats a minute during competition, which there was noticeable changes in my clarity, my mental, like my cognitive state during the ride.
Yeah, man, it's huge. And especially for guys like us that get wound up and, you get into this kill mode, and your body's natural reaction when you get into this kill mode is just like tense up as much as you can. And there is no room for oxygen when you're doing that.
Yes.
And we've got to find this happy medium between that aggressiveness, but being able to use our bodies and our muscles at the same time. And that's one of the hardest things I think about any sport, but rough stock especially the bareback riding, is we get into that just grit mode and want to lock down and kill, and it just is never going to work because you've got to move with the animal and be able to use your force and lever and power with. Can't do that if you're rigid. And breathing is the man, again, another free resource that goes a million miles when it comes to your progression. And it's something that I utilized big time when I came back for the short amount of time that I did, because I realized, looking back at all of my experiences, that I hadn't focused on breathing one time. I didn't even know that there were benefits from it. And so that 5-5-5 is what I use too. And you're talking about, mental clarity, just the absolute opposite, experience that I had with getting on from in the beginning when I didn't breathe, till coming back and like seeing every jump, feeling everything, actually knowing what I'm doing on the back of a horse. It was cool. It's wild. And it's something that can change everything for you if you can just calm that central nervous system down a bit. What about your self-talk? I mean, I think we've all been in there, told ourselves we sucked. I threw my rigging in the trash a couple times. Literally, I was so upset with myself. And turns out it never went well, even after that, because I didn't tell myself that I was, good enough to do it. Didn't believe I could do it. And again, didn't know a lot about positive affirmations or self-talk back then when I was, 19, 20 years old. But here I am, 35, and I know that these things are massively important, not just for rodeo, but just for your overall mental health and happiness. You've got to develop a routine of kind of boosting your confidence and your mental state, and developing a set of affirmations that really resonate with you, and repeat them daily. Whatever that is for you. Do you guys have anything like that you tell yourself?
Yeah, I have used that in life since competing quite a good bit, and I think it starts to become part of your identity. The issue that we have with it, and the reason that we don't do it, is that it feels silly, and it feels like bragging on ourselves or whatever, that like I ride, strong horses well or whatever. But it's one of those things that, I can sit here and tell you I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I don't have any more money in my bank account right now than I did. However, if I say that to myself consistently for long enough, I'm going to start making decisions that people with money would make, right? And that's kind of that building of the identity, and that it is part of who you are. And so then you start to act accordingly. And when you act accordingly, then you start to get the things that you're saying. So for example, what my first year back at Denver, I was like 28 years old and I had Explosive Skies drawn, and the only video I could find was Orrin getting 3 jumped on it when he had some broke ribs at the finals the year before, and I was terrified. But I can remember, I mean, I drove up the night before, and the whole way there, I can just like anytime I was controlling my mind, taking thoughts captive, and I was like, I spurred Explosive Skies. I spurred Explosive Skies like the whole way up there. That was my mantra for the weekend, and it went really well. Ended up winning second in the round, but it was because I know that played a role in my identity and what I believed I was capable of. So that self-talk is definitely something that, and those positive affirmations, and you've got to be specific about what you want and who you are, and then you need to be consistent. If you do them once a week, probably not changing your identity.
Yeah, and there's an important part in your verbiage there, like it was past tense. So it needs to be like, it could be present tense, but or past tense, like it's already happened or you've already had this thing. If you were saying like I'm going to spur Explosive Skies, well, like that's a future cast,
Yeah.
and so like when the time comes, like that your affirmation is still in the future, like it's not happened yet, and so you wouldn't have been in the same frame of mind. Like you're still striving for that thing, but you're not there yet. So make sure that if you are coming up with affirmations, they are things that either they're present tense or they're past tense, like you have already accomplished these things, because that shifts your mindset into I try to use ones now for my life. Like I always frame them as in whatever I'm trying to work on in that time is I am the type of man that fill in the blank. And so I am, and like, so it's, I've already accomplished this thing, even though it's still something that I'm working on. I talk to myself as if it has already happened.
Hey guys, we got some exciting news for you. If you're listening to this, we know that you're committed to upping your game in the arena. And we're teaming up with the Rodeo Now app to help you do just that. The Rodeo Now app allows you to record, upload, and catalog your rides and runs, review your performances in slow motion, and our favorite feature, if you're not familiar with your stock draw, you can search your animal by name to get all the intel you need to make your next ride a winning one. Join the rodeo revolution today and download the Rodeo Now app for free. It's available in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store.
I love that. And I think that really brings us into the focus techniques of how we do this, and that staying present, using the present tense, or like something you've already done. Logan, I don't think you knew that you were doing that, but that was
No idea.
funny. Because you'd already spurred him, or you'd already done it. You're already there, and that led to you had a really successful rodeo there,
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to get there, and your mind starts wondering to the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? You've got to block that out and really focus on the right now. And the right now is what you can control. And what you can control is the basics of whatever it takes to get your event done, and the things that we just listed before this. The positive affirmations, the visual techniques, the breathing techniques, the seeing, the whatever it is, success after you pumping your fists to the crowd going nuts. Seeing and believing those things leads down to this staying in the moment and controlling those things you can control. Logan, what'd you have?
I think you're 100% correct. And I think that it's worth noting and pausing before we move on that all three things that we've talked about all have made huge positive impacts in our lives and thousands of other athletes. Let's just recognize again that they are all free, and they are all the last thing that we naturally want to select as how we're going to improve ourselves. It is always, well, it's my rigging. Well, if I just had a Oki, or if I just had a high lift, or if I just had an elbow brace, or if I just had a Brazilian bull rope, or if I just had different spurs, there's always something that we go to that is outside of ourselves. All three things, I'm not saying that any of those are invalid reasons, and maybe you would be better off with some of those things, but if you're not utilizing the low hanging fruit,
the three things that just cost your investment of time daily and consistency, let's start there before we start worrying about all the other things that are outside of your control.
Boom. Yeah. It's that simple. It really is. What about your like routines and rituals? Did you guys have pre-read rituals?
Yes, but
That
none
were
of them.
okay. Hold on. Let me reframe this. Let me reframe that are applicable to a successful thing we would do today. And also, I want to hear about I want to hear about you. Let's go.
Oh,
Big on to the
I did have the way that I would always develop my routines would be based on what happened at the rodeo. So it made no sense, right? So
Changing.
if it went really well, like when I got
what I
on
did last
Explosive
night.
Skies, it went really good. I'm gonna do that thing every time. It didn't matter how many times I got bucked off or was 67 after that until something happened again and I was mid 80s or whatever, and then I'm like, oh, now that thing, there was that little shift, and it was always it made very little sense, right? And scientifically speaking, it didn't have a whole lot of validity there. It was just like whatever I felt like, which draws us to this point of, if you believe it works, then it works. But there was always some form of excessive caffeine, and then there was always a process by which I put rosin on my, rigging, the order of operations there, and changing into my riding pants and rosin on my rigging, and so on and so forth, always had to be just right. And if I forgot one of the steps, I might as well have just packed my gear bag up and gone home, because mentally I was not prepared to succeed today, because I, I I'm not exaggerating, and this will be the last thing I'll wrap up, but I blamed Lacey one time because she washed my riding jeans, which was fine. I asked her to, but I had a little piece of tape that I tied my riding jeans on with, and it had been with me for quite a while, and I'd been winning a bunch of money, and she threw the piece of tape away. Immediately, my riding went in the trash. I remember I was so upset with her for throwing the piece of tape away. The piece of tape had no, however, it was like my thing. If you believe it works, then it works. So there was no sense to it, but that all tied into my pre-competition routine, all the way down to what I tied my pants up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can get out of hand, and especially when you're using your daily results to adjust your routine based off of how the day went, we're gonna end up in a spiral, which kind of where we ended up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the way we can adjust that is having a routine maybe that's focused on, again, the things that you can control. You can, like the systems that you had for getting your gear ready. Absolutely, that is a yes. Have your systems for getting that ready, but how about a system for preparing your body, your warm up? And we do that with our athletes. It's a 3-phase warm up, right? Go ahead, run us through that, Logan, because this
Ramp.
is you.
Just the first thing we got to raise. We're going to raise their heart rate, their muscle temperature, respiratory rate up, get that going. Then we're going to activate and mobilize, move through, and the last thing is potentiation, where we're going to start to mimic the sport.
Boom. So our athletes have that ritual for their warm up, right? They do that every time. We have it timed for them when they should do it. They use those times, and they adjust it for when they need, right? For what's good for them, for how they feel is more applicable, which is the whole point of this teamwork that we have with coach and athlete. But performance cues, things that you can tell yourself to focus on when you're riding or when you're getting on, that you can tell yourself every single time, that are going to lead to success, right? So in the bareback riding, we talk about lifting on your rigging. Again, I hate lifting. I think more of a pry on your rigging. Use your lat and isometrically hold it, whatever. Drive your hips at your feet and tuck your chin. There's 4 things that you have to do for it to go moderately right. No matter what that horse does, if you do all of those things, it's going to go pretty well. And that's something that was with me. My mind would go crazy getting on, and I couldn't think of anything. And once I could focus on those 3 things, and for me, it was just lift and set my feet, lift and set my feet, lift and set my feet. I would tell myself that from the second I'm going to put my rigging on till I nod my head, I'm nodding, saying it to myself, because I'm setting my feet when I mark him out. I'm lifting then. And then anytime he moves my feet, I'm setting them and lifting. That's all I needed to say. And I got on Jesse's girl, that first horse back, and it all happened really fast. But I came back to probably 4 seconds in, and I'm still in my brain, lift and set your feet. I came back to when I said set them, and I was like, oh, you did it. Like, oh, keep doing it. Keep lifting and set your feet. That's all you did. That's so easy. But it's those little things that you can control that keep it simple, because in those high pressure situations, you don't need to be thinking about anything but simple things. Like, you're already using all your capacity there. And again, that's the hardest part about this sport, is keeping it that simple and trusting to just do those things, and it's going to work. And you're going to have plenty of times where you go out and you nod your head for whatever you're doing, and you get done, you're like, what the heck did I just do? And that's okay. But the important thing is going back and fixing it. I'm going to compare it to my bow. I think I've said that recently, but like, I've been shooting my bow a lot. I know the processes. It's really easy for me to just sit up there and rip it back and shoot my bow. And I'm like, yeah, hit the target. What were you aiming at? What did you do while you shot? I don't know. And the other times where I get it back there and I'm perfect, and I'm like, just press it nice and ring, and I'll jerk the shit out of it. And I'm like, why did you do that? That was dumb. You knew exactly what you'd like. You just didn't do what you were training yourself to do. And I compare that to rodeo so much, because I could go be like an 85-point ride, the next day get 2 jumped. And it's literally that conversation with yourself. Dude, what are you doing? You didn't do it. You didn't do A and B. That's all you had to do. And that's the hardest part. And that's why you want to blame something else, is because it's so hard to have that combo with yourself and say, you're the problem, not your gear. And sometimes, guys, it is your gear, but that should not be the first look, right?
Yeah. Not to turn this into a total archery podcast, but I had that realization last week. You know, Doug, I sent you the pictures of the target, because I realized that in shooting, and I'll circle it back to rodeo here in a second. But like,
golf, shooting, and rodeo, all the same.
The preparation, like, all of the thinking is done in the preparation.
Yes.
And then once it's time to draw back and shoot, like, the brain has to turn off and you has to be instinctual. And so, you know, for me, it's a little bit different than you, because I'm shooting a recurve. And so there's literally nothing to aim off of. And so all of my aiming and all of my thought and all of my alignment and my shot process all has to happen before I ever draw the string back. And then once I draw the string back, it's just natural reaction. It's the thing that I practiced, you know, over the last month or so. So I figured that out finally. Instead of trying something new every shot process, I actually stuck to one shot process and did the same ritual every single shot, and I had the best results that I've ever had. And I immediately brought that back to rodeo. I was like, holy crap, this is just like when I was getting on bulls. My process beforehand has to be the same. My thought process anyway. I have to prepare the same way. All of the thinking has to be done before. And when I slide up to nod, there is no more thinking. It is just natural reaction. I let the arrow fly. And if I let the arrow fly with my instinct aimed on the target, I hit the target. As long as all of the thinking was done beforehand. If I try to think during the actual drawing back, or if I try to think during the bull ride, like, it's not going to work.
Yep. It is so similar, man. It is ridiculously similar, and I love it, because it kind of gives me that working on the same stuff, even as I get older and doing something different, but it's totally applicable. What about when things change in rodeo, which is my favorite, because we all see the videos. You draw something, you see a calf, you see, or whatever, your horse you're getting on, and it does not do what the video said it was going to do. How do we be mentally prepared for that?
I think it goes exactly what Logan was saying. Like, he was so reliant on his process, and like the actual mechanisms by which he was going through his process, that like one change in that threw it off. And so I think, like, when we're thinking about routines, and this carries over into the ride, there needs to be a time for your ride and maybe a way in which you do it, but like the actual specifics of it are left to chance, because, you know, it might be raining one day. Like, you might have that might throw off your routine a little bit, but as long as you stick to the time frame and you stick to, you know, the order of operations, you're going to be okay, because that's what you rely on, is how you are preparing, or the time that you're allotting to prepare yourself. But, you know, the specific things, like if Logan could have just ripped a string off his chaps and tied his pants up that day, and it would have been fine if he wasn't relying on that piece of tape.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So the specific mechanisms by which we go about, let's leave that up to whatever, because rodeo is full of variables. There's an endless number of variables. Things are going to change. And so if you rely on your preparation, rely on your your, I guess, your
System.
commitment to yourself and your systems, then it doesn't matter what that calf does. It doesn't matter what the horse does. It doesn't matter what the bull does, because you have already prepared in every way, and then you're just reacting at that point.
Yes.
And I think
that's
that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with that, like, active quote unquote visualization is just preparing, simulating those competition conditions and preparing for horses that circle right, preparing for horses that circle left, go straight away, a little stronger, there's not the same spur rides for all horses, right? Like, spur ride is adjusted based on the caliber of animal that I'm getting on. And so practicing those things enabled me to not be as focused in on what the animal did, because I felt pretty confident that no matter what, I had a game plan going in based on the research I'd done on the animal, talked to guys or whatever. But I could adjust that game plan because I'd practiced it. I was fluent in how to do it no matter what the animal actually did inside the arena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you guys have said, rodeo, you can expect the unexpected. That's just how it goes. If you make your system so simple that no matter what happens, you can do that system, that's the best thing you can do to keeping yourself kind of calm and ahead in those situations. We talked about, your instincts when you're shooting. It's the same thing as when you're riding, you're reacting. It's an instinctual reaction, right? And so you've got to trust those instincts and train them so much that is what you revert to every time, whether the horse is spinning, running, whatever. You've got to be able to just keep it simple and adapt and stay calm under pressure. And we talked about a lot of those ways to do that, and breathing is the number one way. But you find yourself overwhelmed, pause, stop for a second. Why are we feeling like this? Take a deep breath, reassess what what we're having anxiety or whatever about, and go back to our system. That's the game with your own brain, is it wants to sabotage you, but you get to stop it and realize that, hey, no, that's a trick. I need to go against that, right? Go restate whatever positive affirmations, whatever my system is, lift and set your feet, whatever that is to you, just keep saying that. But, staying calm and coming out successful in these highly pressured situations is not for the faint of heart. And that's why only a select few elite are the ones really excelling in it, right? Because they've really mastered all of these things. And today we talked about all these various strategies to help all of you handle pressure like these elite athletes that we're talking about, so you all can be champions in whatever you're doing. So mental preparation, we talk about physical preparation all the time. They are tied hand in hand to all these in the moment techniques that we covered today. These are all tools designed for you to help perform at your best. So we encourage you all to use these. Fill us in. If you're using them and seeing results, or you need help, hit us up, drop us messages on Instagram, share your successes with us. We'd love to see them. And, if you are needing help with this realm or with your physical preparation, swing by our website, get a free consultation with one of our coaches. We'll answer all your questions, get you set up with the right coach for your goals. You can go to the website, www.championlivingfitness.com, click the sign up now button, and again, free consult with any of us. And we'll get you on the road to success. Guys, until next time, we'll catch you later. Lots of rodeo gear companies are coming out, but not all are equal. Beastmaster is really setting the bar when it comes to the equipment that is built for durability and designed for success in the arena. You guys can check them out at beastmasterrodeo.com. Use our discount code ChampionLiving24. That's ChampionLiving24. It'll save you a little bit at checkout.
If you want to learn more about our coaches and program options, make sure to swing over to our website at www.championlivingfitness.com. You can fill out the Become an Athlete form to set up your free consultation and have all your questions answered by a coach.